Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Krame Center for Mindful Living. Welcome back to those of you who are a regular part of our mindfulness community and meditation group, and a nice warm welcome to those of you who are new and joining us for the first time. Just a little bit about us. We are a global nonprofit organization whose mission is to make the benefits of mindfulness, self-compassion, and positive psychology accessible to all. Our goal is to help people become more resilient and live better lives through our various programs. We offer affordable pricing and scholarships, as well as these free weekly meditations. So, our current theme is living with an open heart. And this week's theme is living with optimism. So, let's begin by defining what optimism is. Optimism is hope and confidence about the future or about successful outcomes. And the opposite of optimism, as we know, is pessimism, which is this lack of hope and confidence about how things will turn out in the future. And I'd like to offer this quote by Winston Churchill. He says, "The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty." And this is a choice. We can choose to view things from a glass half full perspective rather than a glass half empty. And we can learn to be more optimistic. Our explanatory style is how we explain the unfavorable events of our lives. So there are two types of explanatory styles: pessimistic explanatory style and optimistic explanatory style. So, people with a pessimistic explanatory style tend to explain negative or unfavorable events as being permanent. They believe that the circumstances just will never change. They also take the situation or circumstance that they're in personally. They may say things like, "Ugh, I am the reason for this problem," or "Ugh, it's all my fault." And lastly, those with a pessimistic explanatory style view the situation as pervasive. They believe that every aspect of their lives is affected by the problem. Those with an optimistic explanatory style, however, tend to explain negative or unfavorable events as temporary. So they recognize that this is just how things are in the moment and that the circumstances will likely change. Those with an optimistic explanatory style also view the things through the lens of common humanity. So they're able to recognize and understand that everyone in life struggles or faces difficulties at one time or another. They recognize that even though we may struggle for different reasons and to varying degrees, as human beings, we all struggle at one point or another in our lives. And then lastly, those with an optimistic explanatory style recognize that the experience they're going through is an isolated experience and that they don't struggle all of the time. So they're really able to view experiences with a greater sense of clarity and understanding. A useful shortcut I like to offer for understanding the distinction between pessimistic versus optimistic explanatory style is this always versus not always, me versus not me, and everything versus not everything. And if you recognize that you tend to view things from a pessimistic perspective, it's okay. Maybe offer yourself some self compassion and know that you can make the choice to shift from a more pessimistic disposition to a more optimistic disposition. And in order to make this shift, we first need mindful awareness. So we need to be aware of the difficulty that we're facing. We need to be aware of our negative or more pessimistic view or perspective of things. And making the shift to view things from a more optimistic lens can greatly contribute to our overall well being as well as build resilience. So, research has shown that optimistic people often experience lower levels of stress, they have fewer symptoms of depression, are often at lower risk of Alzheimer's. They have more positive emotions and often experience better sleep. They may also be more kind and compassionate. They may live longer. And since they're happier, there is a greater quality and quantity of life. So we know that the thoughts that move through our minds influence our feelings and behaviors, which then influence the overall quality of our lives. So our thoughts are extremely powerful. So it's really important to try and view things from a more optimistic lens. I also want to highlight here that living with optimism does not mean that everything has to be all rainbows and sunshine all of the time. We can have realistic optimism, and realistic optimism is the belief that we will succeed. And it's also the understanding that we have to work towards success. Realistic optimism is about looking on the bright side of things while also persisting through challenges. So I invite you to explore living with optimism. Make the choice to view things with this glass half full perspective and see what happens. You just might be pleasantly surprised. And so, with that, I would like to transition us into our formal portion of the meditation. So, taking a moment to find a posture that's comfortable for you, right? This might mean uncrossing the legs, maybe gently placing the palms in the lap. This may even look like lying down and covering yourself with a blanket. So, just doing whatever it is that you need to make yourself comfortable as we move into this meditation. And then there's an invitation to close the eyes or soften the gaze. So, just directing the awareness inward, right? Tuning in. Maybe noticing the feet making contact with the floor, sensing into this contact. Maybe feeling the support of the earth beneath the feet. And now noticing the sits bones resting on the seat. Again, sensing into this contact. Maybe feeling the support of the chair. Maybe even feeling the sensation of being held. And if you are seated, perhaps finding a little extra length in the spine, reaching through the crown of the head. Maybe lifting the shoulders up and back and down behind you, opening up the chest and the heart space. Just continuing to settle into this posture. And as you do, perhaps you become aware of the fact that the body is breathing. Maybe noticing how it's breathing all on its own with no need to do anything. There's no effort involved. And just gently resting the awareness on the breath in the body. So, no need to change or manipulate the breath in any way. Just following the natural breath cycle. So, noticing one breath in, one breath out, another breath in, and another breath out. And just continuing to follow the breath along in this way. staying with each breath, breath by breath, and moment by moment. And at some point, as we're practicing together, the mind may wander away. And that's okay. That's what our minds do. But as you notice that the mind has wandered, just gently directing the attention back onto the breath. Just continuing to ride the waves of the breath cycle. Staying with this natural ebb and flow. The breath moves in and the breath moves out. And just following it along as it moves into the body and out of the body. Nowhere to go, nowhere to be, but right here with the breath in the body. And if the mind has drifted off once again, know that we can always come home to the breath. Each moment is always an opportunity to begin again. And now I'd like to invite you to recall a time when you experienced a struggle or difficulty in your life that has been resolved, but choosing a situation in which you had a pessimistic outlook. Right? So thinking of a difficulty in your life that's been resolved, in which you had a pessimistic outlook. Maybe one thing is coming to mind, or perhaps there are many such situations, but just settling on one. Holding this occurrence in your mind's eye. And now recalling as many details of this particular experience as possible. So, what happened? Where were you? Who was there? What was said? What wasn't said? So, just recalling as many details of the experience as possible. Taking some time to see what bubbles up to the surface. And now reflecting on the thoughts that arose, these pessimistic thoughts. What were they? So, just taking some time to recall the pessimistic thoughts that were in your mind as you went through this particular experience. And now reflecting on how you approached this situation, right? How did you approach this situation? What did you do to solve this problem or deal with the difficulty at hand? Right? So just taking a minute on this and seeing what it is that comes up. Reflecting on how you approached the situation and how you dealt with the difficulty at the time. Seeing if it's possible to recognize now that this was a temporary setback. Although it may have felt overwhelming or challenging at the time, you were able to move past it. Just recognizing this. And now recognizing the common humanity in this experience that you went through. Reminding yourself, although you may have felt alone while you were in this situation, everyone in life struggles and faces difficulties at one point or another. Reminding yourself that it's part of being human. It's part of the human experience. And just noticing what it's like to tap into this common humanity. Sensing into what this experience is like. And now recognizing how you were able to deal with this situation, recognizing that you were able to move on. Your life proceeded and this situation resolved. And now I'd like to invite you to reflect on how this situation might have been different had you had a more optimistic outlook. Right? So if you viewed it from this more glass half full perspective, what would have been different? How would this experience have been different had you recognized that this situation was temporary? How might this experience have been different had you recognized that others in life also face challenges and difficulties just like you? How might this experience have been different had you recognized that you would overcome this, that you would see your way to the other side? And now, reflecting on if there is anything else that is currently happening in your life that you've been pessimistic about. Is there anything in life in which you are viewing through things through this lens, through this mindset? And now reflecting on how you might bring a more optimistic perspective to this situation. How might you view this situation with a glass half full outlook? And just taking some time to sit with this. And remembering that optimism is a choice. We can choose to view things with a glass half full perspective. We can choose to look on the bright side of things. And when you're ready, just gently returning back to the breath in the body, coming home to the breath once again. Just continuing to follow the natural breath cycle. And I would like to offer the poem, The Meaning of Optimism by Ashley Marie Egan. We reach for the stars on cold winter nights, even though we know our arms could never find those balls of light. They tell us we are small ants amongst the universe, that one day all of this will be gone. Still, our arms are outstretched. And when you're ready, just beginning to wiggle fingers and toes, bringing some slight and gentle movements back into the body. Allowing the eyes to open if they had been closed. If you'd like, you can take some larger movements in the body if that feels good. And I would like to leave you with a weekly invitation. And so for this week, I'd like to invite you to recognize an area of your life where you're having a pessimistic outlook and see if it's possible to make the choice to view it from a more optimistic lens. If it's helpful, see if it's possible to view the situation as temporary. Try to connect with our common humanity and try to remember that with other things in life, you can overcome this challenge or difficulty as well. And after making this shift, see what happens, notice the outcome. Notice how viewing things from this glass half full perspective can truly make a difference. I'd also just like to conclude us with one final announcement. We do have a few spots left for our next 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course, or MBSR course. It will be starting soon. It begins on February 12th. It's taking place on Saturday mornings from 9:30 until noon. And so we really hope that you'll consider joining us. I'd like to thank you all for your practice. It was so wonderful to come together in this community. Be well and take very good care of yourselves, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.